And so, welcome. Hey, Pandora, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you for the love.
No problem. Thanks so much for being with us today. Man, I have so many questions for you. This is so exciting. You've been killing it in the game for a really long time. So, I'm thank you so much for coming with us and joining us for this interview. I guess we'll start from like the top. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So, where I'm from Santa Ana, Orange County, Southern California, West Side. Born and raised, I was born in Orange, the city of Orange, and raised in Santa Ana.
Oh,
Um, those are my roots.
oh, very cool. Can you tell me about like your cultural background? Does that have any influence on how you dance? I was just curious if
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy you asked that, actually. I'm of Native American descent. Um, and a lot of people are not familiar with that, and it means I'm indigenous to this country, USA. I'm enrolled in the Chickasaw tribe. However, I'm from uh, my descent is from two tribes, Chickasaw and Choctaw. And it has a major influence on me, and more so in as I got older. When I was younger, wasn't I didn't grow up around my tribe or on a res or anything like that. I grew up in Santa Ana, which was mostly my dad is Mexican, so I was mostly grown up around that type of culture and food and everything. And I reconnected as I got older. I mean, my mom took me to powwows when I was younger, locally in Southern Cali. But somewhere between in my youth, I got disconnected from that and reconnected in my later years. And when I did, it not only took an influence on my dance, but also in my thought, um, just the whole culture in general. And also, I actually, in the last recently, began to learn more about the dances themselves. Fancy dancing, for instance, and also like other powwow dance styles that a lot of us share, natives share. So there's, fancy dancing, jingle dancing, um, and yeah, uh, it's a forever journey. I feel, that there's so much history behind that kind of thing.
mm,
Uh, I just feel like it's something it's just now a part of my life. So just like dance, you just kind of never stop learning or incorporating, finding new ways to incorporate that into your life. So yeah, it's a ongoing process and it's beautiful. So I appreciate you for asking. Thank you.
yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Is it so in your journey and discovering more native dances, like fancy dancing, has it been hard to find like resources, or is there a big community where you are? Is it pretty small?
Actually, there is a big community here. It's not my tribe. It's the Paiute tribe in Vegas. Um, when I was in LA, I wasn't connected to any tribes. I was more connected to individual artists. So there's my friend Thosh Collins. Um, well, actually, he was the only one that I was connected to at the time from that in within the hip hop community. And he also did photographs and danced, and he kind of connected me to other people. And I had found him because someone else referred me to him because I said I wanted to do. I was starting to come into my own artistically and how I wanted to present that to the world and where I was at that point in time. And I wanted to do an identity photo shoot that kind of illustrated something inspirational, drawing in all my influences. And I wanted to incorporate more of my native influences into that shoot. And someone directed me to Thosh, and it was the best thing ever. And he helped me bring that to life. And then from there, it started to get easier. Once you get connected to one person, then you find another. And then, when I came to Vegas, I got connected through to Fawn here, who does a lot of activist work and who's also an art teacher at UNLV. And of course, my mom, and getting reconnected with my family in Oklahoma. That's where they all live. And uh, in Choctaw territory, and also have some family members in Chickasaw territory out there. And so I have family members that do specifically a cousin of mine that teaches actually the history of Choctaw out there, takes people on these nature journeys to kind of talk about that. And also all my family out there is more immersed in it than me. So whenever I go out there to visit them, it's like a history lesson, basically. And I also recently got handed down my great aunt's regalia, which is, for those who don't know what that is, it's like our, first of all, it's not a costume. It's part of our heritage, it's what we wear when we dance. Every tribe has their own look and dresses and styles and things like that. And so it was an honor for me to receive something like that passed down to me and my family. Uh, so, uh, so yeah, it's gotten easier actually, the older I've gotten and the more comfortable I've become asking questions and about that kind of thing, and not being afraid of, just because, not being afraid of embracing where I'm from, but at the same time embracing also where I've grown up, and kind of embracing it all at the same time and going forward with all of that. Was something I wasn't when I was younger, like a lot younger, when I was a child, basically, I wasn't so comfortable with. So with age and wisdom and support, friends and family and people who were more connected than I was, they kind of pulled me more into embracing everything more without being shy about it. So so yeah, it's definitely become easier, but it was hard at first for sure, because I didn't grow up in the vicinity of my tribe.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. When did you get into dance?
Whew, like I love that question because I feel like the word dance, it's something the world can relate to. I mean, essentially everything dances at some point, even inanimate objects, right? But like for me, to dance in general, like movement, what the first thing I think since I was a baby, what my family members tell me now is like, I wouldn't stop moving around. Like my grandfather from Oklahoma was like, yeah, when you're a baby, you wouldn't stop. You're always moving around. We didn't want to take you to restaurants because you kept moving around. So I think just by nature, I'm a person that just can't stop moving. And when I was around 5, my grandparents that raised me in Southern Cali, they had put me in ballet and a tap dance class. I believe I was 5 or 6. I was really little.
Oh,
I barely remember it, but I remember not liking it. I remember not liking. I love the dance, but I didn't like being around like the other kids, and I'd cried, and they took me out. But I still really loved it, and I really loved ballet specifically, and like the Nutcracker. Like that was probably my first inspiration, watching like this ballerina in a pretty, outfit on stage and the lights and just the whole performance. And I tried to be that, I'd wear my little costume, even though I wasn't taking ballet anymore, and like dance around the house in it. I have pictures of me out in front of the lawn, trying to do little twirls and things in my costume. And then, I started to copy music videos like a lot of other people, that age, dance around the house when nobody was home, and then do little shows when they got back. So, it was just something that I always loved. And then I think just loving music in general, just growing up around music a lot. For me, growing up in Santa Ana, there's a lot of lowriders, a lot of lowrider culture. A lot of oldies being played, a lot of Zapp and Roger and like old school funk and things like that. So when I was 10, I was started to collect music like that, listen to Double Dutch Bus, and I had my first cassette tape, uh, with all those songs on it. And so just by listening to that and hip hop, like the hip hop that was on the radio at the time, I think these were, at the time I didn't know it, but probably my foundations, to getting more into dance. So first came probably, ballet and the things I would see on TV, the music videos, pop culture, you know what I mean? Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, um, you know, just the the magic that came with them. You know, I don't know if there's a kid that didn't try to do any MJ moves, you know, or dance like Janet or Paula Abdul. And then and then when I got to high school, well, even through junior high, you know, seeing other kids older than me just being good dancers. And at that time, house music became really popular around 92, you know, at school. And seeing a lot of people do that and trying to copy it. And then high school rolled around, and then I saw this one dancer named Elsewhere, and
David else.
David Elsewhere. And he was, I believe, when I was a sophomore, I want to say he was a junior. I don't know, he was just older at the time, and completely different circle of friends. And one time, well, at this particular high school, every Friday they have a DJ and they play some music, and some people will go out and dance in the center of, you know, the quad area during lunchtime sometimes. And he was out there one day, and I seen him, and I was like, whoa, like, what is he doing? You know, he's like collapsing, and it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And my best friend at the time, his older brother, hung out with them, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, they go out a lot. They go to you know, raves and underground parties. And I was like, wow, like, I want to go where they're going. So, you know, that is what got me interested in going out to raves and the underground LA scene. So I started driving at a young age, probably around 15, working at a young age as soon as I could. You know, wanted to grow up as soon as I could.
Right.
As soon as I got my car, I was out going to LA. You know, Santa Ana's about, I want to say, it's not like in LA, but it's like right, you know, it's about an hour, I want to say, drive. So I would drive pretty far out there to go to these parties and follow them around. And then, you know, I just started seeing for a good while, about a year, I just was just in love with the music at first. They were basically these festivals that played raves, you know, at the time that just played different styles of music. So there'd be house in one room, drum and bass in the other, and hip hop sometimes, and all these different styles of music. And I got drawn to drum and bass specifically. I think maybe because it reminded me a lot of hip hop, like electronic version, I guess, with reggae influences and all kinds of other things, break beats, all kinds of stuff. And then I just started just getting drawn to good dancers, seeing people out there in circles, you know, dancing. Um, and that's what got me started, actually. Maybe just seeing a lot of that around. And I don't remember I remember I was at this place called the Orange Show. It's like a huge warehouse. And there was a rave. I don't remember which one it was, but I just decided randomly to jump in a circle one day. Everyone in there was, at the time, they were tutting, but I didn't know what it was called. They were just making shapes with their hands. And I was like, man, I just started seeing one person after the other doing it. And then I was just looking at it and I was like, oh, that looks fun. You know, like everybody's just jumping in and doing it. I want to do that. So I jumped in and I just started trying it. And I'm sure it was like super terrible. But when I was done, everybody started clapping. And this one dude's like, oh, I didn't know you're Popper. And I don't know what he's talking about, Popper. I just like nodded my head and said, yeah. And then he's like, do you know who Mr. Wiggles is? I was like, oh, no, I don't know who that is. He's like, you should go look him up. So I did. And then there was a shop called Workman's at the time. It was a hip hop shop that sold writing videos and gear, threads, all kinds of different things, hip hop related. And they had VHS tapes. And so I bought Mr. Wiggles 3. But I took that home. I bit the whole thing. You know, I admit that because that's what got me started. You know, I hadn't seen anything like that before. I didn't even know that it had its own world or its own culture or anything. At this point in my life, I just known just good dancers or seen good dancing. So I learned off that video. I went back to a rave. I was trying them out in circles, and one guy called me out on it, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Wiggles 3," he pointed at me, and that guy became actually my first mentor, and his name was Confusion. So I know this story is really long now, but you asked me how I got started dancing. So that's the very start. And that guy Confusion is actually funny enough, for like a year previous to this, I'd been seeing him in circles, and like to me, he was like the best at like tutting and tutting Confusion. His doing a lot of complicated movements and things, uh, and so it's just funny that when he called me out on biting that video, I found out he only lived like 10 minutes away from me in Orange County, actually. So yeah, so that's how my road began with that.
Right. So, going into that, who are your main influences of, or what did the dance scene look like, or who are your influences for developing your style now?
Okay, so I have so many. So just to make a long story short, so that's how my story began.
Mhm.
There's so much more that happened after that. I would say that uh, the first three people I've mentioned so far, Elsewhere was probably the first, from a street point of view, street dancer to influence me. Not directly, but like from watching, and then came Confusion, and then Mr. Wiggles. Um, and then of course like various other dancers I had been seeing around at raves at that time, because I was going out a lot to not just raves but hip hop, underground hip hop. I was into a lot of popular LA underground hip hop groups and people and MCs and things like that. So along with that, I was going everywhere, even to the DMC battles. so so after that, Confusion took me under his wing, and I started to learn from him. So my style, when it began, was basically looked a lot like his, because he was teaching me. And Jigsaw all came around that same time, who was also the Jigsaw from Southern California. Uh, and he was also someone I'd been seeing a lot around in the raves, and he approached me and offered to teach. So I was learning from both of them around the same time. And Confusion uh, had a group called Funk Technicians, or actually, we actually all started that together. And it was me, him, Pop and Todd, and a couple other guys, Soundwave, and I forget the name of the other. It's been so long. This is like, I want to say either 99 or 2000. And where are we? We're in 2021. Whew. So that started, and those two were a really big influence on my tutting, um, because they specifically worked with me on that. That was my entry style into all the other dance styles. It's my first love, I guess, of the street dances. So Confusion had a lot of clean lines, and then Jigsaw came, and he had a lot of really intricate patterns, a lot of finger tuts, a lot of personality. He liked to battle a lot too whenever he saw people around. So a lot of attitude. So I felt I had two really good teachers, at that time. And Jigsaw specifically learned from Mr. Ree. And which I also became a fan of. I never learned directly under him, but he's also an indirect influence of mine, watching him, videos of him, VHSs at the time, and seeing him live and things like that, with his strobing and all kinds of his other stuff, ground moves and things.
Mhm.
So another direct influences, I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. First, before I start, around this time, when I was going out to raves and things, there's a guy named Ted, who went by Bruticus, or actually he began going by X. This guy, basically, I ran into him at a rave, and he's a lot older. He's OG dude, local, and he gave me his card, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I have a online popping email club. If you want to join it, we talk about history and facts and things like that, and just talk about the dance if you want to be a part of it." And I said, "Oh yeah, for sure." At this time, I didn't really know anybody, and I want to say this is right before I met Confusion, so I hadn't yet known anyone yet. So I was like, "Oh yeah." And so he gave me his card. I joined it. This is at the time when AOL was the thing. And so it was an AOL email club. So I joined it, put my name in there. So whenever someone would post or make an email, it would go to everyone. But you couldn't see who it came from, unless they signed at the end. Later, I found out that like there's a lot of people in this club. Mr. Wiggles was in it. Mr. Ree was in it. Confusion was in it. Like a lot of people I would later end up meeting, so which makes sense, because if I met X this way, I'm sure he approached all these same people in the same way. So this email club kind of got me started with just knowing about the culture, because he would throw out these tests. Like he's a collector of VHS footage, so he would make these passworded videos, attach them to emails, send them to people, but you couldn't get access to the video unless you had a password. To get the password, you had to answer like something like a test question he would send out, like, oh, what was Boogaloo Shrimp's real name? And if you knew it, then he would give you the password. So some of them were just these fun things, about people from the culture, and some of them were just like, oh, well, what is how would you describe the dance style? Like, I don't know, waving, like he'd throw out these random things. So anyways, I began, before I actually getting better with the dancing, I started knowing these random things about the culture and dance beforehand because of this email club and how people thought, and conversations and things like that. So I have him really to thank for that, for connecting me to the community in that way. And this was before the Wiggles board started. He had a forum that he put up where everyone would go up and post on there. So anyways, so after those, I want to say Bob and Andre is a big influence of mine. I'm a fan of bopping and just the whole style in general, and just the performance. Like, I don't want to say the performance because it sounds like being something you're not, showmanship is better. I really dug the showmanship of his whole style. And if you ever met him, you'd know what I'm talking about, like just how he is as a person. So we became friends, and he helped me out a lot, just as far as like not only just showing, but also like intellectually, like explaining things. And Motion Sickness Crew, also, they're a big influence of mine. I would drive out to Oceanside every Monday to go practice with them. And that was about an hour drive. So I would go after work, and head straight there and then drive back and practice with them outside of the beach. Their French Twist was there, Legend, Junior Boogaloo, I want to say Schizo, Popzilla. If you know Motion Sickness and you know everyone that's in that group, and so I would go out there with them, and they helped me out a lot too. So Motion Sickness, who else? I have a list because I don't want to forget nobody. I'm gonna skip around too because it's just a lot of history, So influences: Pomona City Poppers. I want to throw up Boardman, No Bone Tyrone. Thank you. He has given me also so much. You got check these people out, please. They have their own tutorials and things like that. No Bone Tyrone, also Slick Dog. Oh man, a lot. Who else? Man, Daryl Stokes, Robot Prince. These Robot Prince and Daryl Stokes, and I want to say these guys specifically. Like Mr. Ree, I didn't learn directly from. These are my local influences. So people I would see and get inspired from around, the people that spend a lot of time with me. I want to say specifically Motion Sickness, Bop and Andre, Confusion, Jigsaw, Angel, he does punking. So he helped me out so much. Playboy Eddie, Jekyll, of course, two LA locals that OGs that definitely played a big part in my style. Tabo, I mean, come on, you cannot live in LA and not have had Tabo as an influence. If you haven't yet, you've got to. Maury, Steen, man. And of course, I gotta say, Wave-O-Matic, rest in peace, good friend of mine, OG also, that played a huge part, not just in my dance, but more so just a lot of these people. I mean, when people talk about influences, we think just dance, but these particular people played way more a part of just not just my dance, just also how you are as a person when you dance. And that just goes into so much more than just the movement, you know? So, and each person's different, how they think and their approach. So I don't want to put them all in the same box of that, because they're all different. Uh, so it's just better for me to say that they just played a huge part in my life, and how I am as a person in my movement and my approach and my whole artistry. Yeah, these people, the LA Boppers, also Earthquake, Sensei Bop. So now I want to say people that I've been influenced that weren't direct teachers, but are huge inspirations of mine, like Anna Sanchez, Tony Basil, animation. I don't know if I said him already. Pop and Pete, of course, the Electric Boogaloo's. And I say them because they didn't live, wasn't around them in LA a lot like these other people. So they're more of distant influences of mine. And whenever they had a class, I would go take it, of course. And who else? Female OGs, locals like Medusa, who I met once or twice, who I've seen when I first saw video footage of her on Mr. Wiggles board. I was like, wow, she's doing snaking and like all crazy stuff. AK, and Stories of Tangerine, another old school LA legend. Funny, I've never seen her dance, but so many people described her to a T that I could visualize her. And they say that she's like a female Bob Andre, so if you can imagine that. And they said she had a sexy style, a real way of bringing out her femininity in her dance and attitude mainly. And that was a big drive for me when I began, because I didn't have a lot of females to look at. And gender ain't a thing to me, in the dance. But as far as like helping me discover other parts of myself, I felt like that was just something that was missing a little bit, that I didn't get to see a lot at that time. I really appreciated those stories that people passed on to me, because it allowed me to create a visual in my head, and then to me to create what that means for me. And that leads me to the last person I'm going to say, and that's Pringles. Pringles was the first, two people. My friend Andrea Praying Mantis was the first woman that I had seen at raves, getting down, then I was like, oh, wow. And then Pringles, who is the first woman I've seen in the bigger battles. I saw her in 2002 for the first time. And she was in the finals against Clown, who is a well-known, legend out there in New York. And that was great. It was crazy because she had so much personality. Her main thing, she's had hard hits, but she also has really, really dope strobing and ticking capabilities, and her personality. And that inspired me to kind of just come to life a little bit more in my own personality. Because as a person, since a child, I was shy, so dance really brought me out of that. And the more people who I saw just shining and being themselves, the more it helped me break out of my shell. So I really have her to thank for that, from a woman point of view, not just for a woman, just like, she's just dope, I really enjoyed that. And then later we became crew. I had joined Animated Beat Mechanics, ABM, mainly because I wanted to be in it because she was in it, but also, to connect with other poppers. J-Rock and Pop and Todd joined with me at the time. Populo was in there, Function, Dementia. So if you ever hear anybody and they say, oh yeah, Pandora, I think she's from Chicago, or I think she's from Indiana or Ohio, it's because a lot of the cats from this crew were from the Midwest. So I was taking a lot of trips out there to hang out. So I've spent not only a lot of time on the West Coast, but also in the Midwest. So that's why people might say that. But I know I'm from the West. I'm from Santa Ana, learned my dance in LA. I rep the West. But yeah, they were also a big influence on me, of course. And then from the East Coast point of view, whenever I go out there, I want to shout out Disco Dave and Jazzy J and the Honeycomb Hideout. You know what that is, you know what it is. But those two huge influences on my style too. And last but not least, I want to shout someone that I have not had the opportunity to speak of before that I wanted to talk more of now, and his name is Grandmaster Priest, who I met when I was out there in a battle, a 2-on-2 battle with Future, and we had made it to the finals. And he had given me, so I met him there, and then he said, you know what, if you're open, I would like to send you some things I feel would really help you with your dance, you know? So I said, oh yeah, cool. You know, I'm a student, you know, I want to learn from everyone. And for one thing that I have learned is I learned to have a lot of respect for my elders and for the OGs and the people that came before me. Um, the way I viewed dance growing up, like I viewed it like a martial art, you know, you go and you learn from these masters, and you don't really talk about it. You don't openly share it unless they say it's okay. They tell you kind of keep it for you. And then, and we would go and we hunt down, literally go hang out with all these people in their hood at their homes and hang out in the garages and practice. And sometimes not, just hear them talk and just collect gems from conversation. And if you were there, you were cool. If you weren't, oh well, go, better luck next time. Anyways, so I was like, yeah, sure, you know, like send me the info, you know. So he mailed me like a letter with like a list of like movies to watch and just books to read, and like just a really, this really well laid out kind of intro to how he kind of does things, and he passed that on to me. And I wanted to say it really helped me out a lot in my dance. Thank you for that, if you're watching, because I don't know how to get in contact with him. But yeah, Grandmaster Priest, that was super a beautiful thing that I'm grateful for. So yeah, man, like so many little stories I have. All these people have done great things on different levels for me that I wouldn't be here without these people. Um, another one last, I know I keep saying one last thing, but this is really the last thing. Bugs Bunny from Fishbone. You may or may not know who that is, but I used to hear stories that he was this amazing tutter, um, old school, before he got in the band, Fishbone. Uh, so, uh, so I would hear stories, you know, same thing like Tangerine. So I had pictures in my mind of what this guy might dance like. And people used to tell me, yeah, he used to do these upside down tuts on the wall and like, I don't know, all kinds of crazy patterns. So one time we found out that he was having or he was going to be somewhere after his concert. And so me and Tetris, my homie Tetris, who you may or may not know, is another amazing person, um, younger than me, but he started hanging out with us at the time, who I don't want to talk him down. Actually, he's influenced a lot of people, by the way, on out in LA and beyond, in the style of tutting, especially 3D tuts. So I want to shout that out real quick. Anyways, me, Tetris went to this and we met up with him and we told him, yeah, you know, we're big fans of you. We heard that you're this crazy tutter and, you know, we're wondering if you could bust a little something for us. And he did. And it was crazy. I mean, I can't even describe it. I mean, he didn't do upside down tutting or anything like that, but it was clean. I mean, I don't even remember what he did, but you know, when you see someone do something, you're like, man, like, and you haven't done this in a long time. So yeah, so that's a kind of another influence of mine that, you know, I have these imagined stories of what they might dance like, him and Tangerine. So let's see who else. I want to say my homie Pop and Chuck. Man, that's everybody, man. Like Detours, you know, have you ever seen that? Elsewhere in his crew. Um, my influences are not just like the hard hitting LA style, you know, but also what I grew up noticing and what was constantly told to me is like what's valued is like your what you bring to the table, you know, like how what your contribution is who you are. So don't be afraid to be who you are in your dance. And so when you think about it and you see all these OGs from, well, I'm gonna speak of from the people that I've seen in LA, they're all so different. All the people I named, Flat Top, Bop and Andre, shoot, like Steen, to Jekyll, to Tabo, to Maury, to Wave-O-Matic, to man, so many people out there. Like everyone looks different. I mean, like, and everyone they keep doing it for so long, and then it just only refines itself, the dance. So I always felt like this was such a huge influence on me, not just in from getting better technically, but just from a longevity point of view, and also from a unique point of view. You know, embracing what makes you unique, what makes you special. Um, I mean, when I grew up, I guess in the stance, there wasn't a whole lot of like there weren't competitions every weekend. You know, there weren't even a lot of classes around. Like I felt like everything was, you had to go find the information. We didn't have the internet, you know, the way it is like today. So I felt like I had to really research for what I wanted to know, and what I didn't know, I imagined it for myself, what that might look like. And I tried to create that, you know. It taught me to really visualize and to really see what that is for me. And so I have all these people to thank for that. And that's my big old long novel.
Oh, thank you for all those gems, man. That's so interesting. So, not to go backwards, but when did you get into popping? You were saying you were going to raves first. So around 90, in the 90s you got into popping? You've been in the popping scene then, and
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's a good question. It's a very it's a very important question, because a lot of people, they attach, well, not they, but a lot of information that's out there comes around the times when I was going to Homeland a lot, which was around 2003-ish, I want to say. And I have a really rich local history before that. So I was well known in my community first in LA, and then their surrounding areas, from LA to Long Beach to Orange County, and mostly LA, because that's where everybody who I learned under was from. Um, so, so when I was going to these raves, at first I wasn't in the scene, like the event scene. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I was more so just going to these parties out and just like meeting people. And when I met Confusion, actually, he was the one who's invited me to Freestyle Session, which became my first event that I ever went to. And there wasn't a popping battle there; it was only the b-boy room, like a lot of events at that time. And but in the room there was Skeeter Rabbit, there was Keely, Lock and Key. You know, you may or may not know who that is. Super dope locker. Um, and Slick Dog. That's where I met Slick Dog for the first time. Elsewhere was there. I had already knew him, you know, from high school, but you know, that's when our worlds started to merge. Who else? A lot of different people I met there. And then my first battle I entered was B-Boy Summit, which was 2002, I want to say. And that I want to say it was that time when I entered that battle. I didn't even make it past prelims, but I was so nervous. But I wanted to do it because I felt at that moment would be a good time to kind of introduce myself, because there weren't a lot of females in the scene, you know, like especially for popping. So I kind of wanted to introduce myself, because I knew like I wasn't as good as like all these other people. So maybe they might not pay attention to me if I was in a circle, or I just wanted to kind of just have a moment like where everyone was looking at me, and the person over the mic would be like, and Pandora, and everyone would know, you know, just get that out of the way. Hey, everybody, you know, and do my thing and get out. And that's basically what I did, you know, and then after that, a lot of people came up and they're like, oh, wow, you know, like giving me advice and all kinds of cool stuff. So so yeah, that was I want to say Freestyle Session 2001 was my first event,
Mhm.
and probably a year. So that was my first kind of, I guess, being around the scene, like event scene. But
Right.
before that, locally being in the dance scene, like with the pop, with the dancers and poppers, I would say probably 2000 is when that started. Because before that, I was, you know, basically just locally going around and doing my thing in circles, um, at parties and such, you know, being a little hip hopper and a underground person. So, so that's how that all began.
Right. So in the early 2000s, you didn't see a lot of other female poppers.
No, the ones that I did see, you just knew who they were already. Everybody knew who each other was. So
Mhm.
the ones, there was a group of these girls I would see go around, but I was shy at the time. I didn't introduce myself. I don't know who they were. There was like a B girl, and then these other two poppers, and I didn't see them again after a while. And then And that's the thing, you know, these LA parties, some of them were really small, but some of them were huge, and they'd bring in people from the Bay Area. And I would see a lot of dope dancers from the Bay Area. You know, they were, it was just known that, the Bay Area had some fierce dancers.
Right.
So, not that LA doesn't, but there's just some distinct differences. So,
Mm,
that also make them really dope. So, there's some random people I'd seen, you know, that I would find out later on were from there. Um, but the ones that stood out to me that I met and then eventually became my friends, my friend Andrea is the first one I'd seen, praying mantis, and then Pringles, you know, who later became my crewmate. After ABM, then came Venus Fly. You know, we started our own thing, our own female group, all styles. So, that's where she came in. And, also AK is another old school local, OG who, I would always see her with Pop and Chuck, the duo there, ripping it up around town. So she was also an inspiration for me because, man, like her name's AK. So, I mean, make the connection. And hard hitting. I want to say a good representation of like, of an LA type of approach. You know what I mean? So
mm,
yeah, her. I would see her, and then like I said, Medusa. But Medusa, you don't know who that is. I mean, she's an MC. I mean, she's got her own like musical journey going on. So like at this time, I believe, I wouldn't ever really see her around. I would just hear stories about her also. And so I'm sure at that time she's probably touring and, you know, doing performances and things like that. So, uh, in fact, I met her randomly at a stoplight in LA one night. She probably doesn't remember, but, yeah, that happened. And, so her, and yeah, other than that, locally, there wasn't really anybody else. Anna, you know, Anna, I later met her, you know, so I didn't meet her in the beginning. So for her, she was just this badass that I've seen in the movie Breakin' that inspired me with that one scene when she comes out and she's just going ham in the camera, you know, the secret weapon that they pull out.
yeah. It sounds like there was only a handful of you, female poppers. Then, um, did you have?
Oh, real quick, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
Um,
You share.
so that in the beginning it was them, but then as time goes on, I want to say towards the mid 2000s, after, because you know, then, you know, Venus Fly happened, I joined with them. um, I had met, a girl or a young woman at the time, and her name is Marie Poppins. So I had met her at B-Boy Summit. Me and Pringles were at B-Boy Summit, and we actually entered the battles there. We entered, twice, actually. The first year we went, we made it to the finals against Bionic Man and Farside. And then, the next year we entered again. And I believe it was this year that I met, Marie there. And she had just come to the US and we exchanged information. She gave me information. She said, "Oh yeah, you know, let's connect." So, I started working at this place in Hollywood with Zulu Gremlin. Zulu Gremlin called me to go work with him, out there for International Dance Academy, a dance studio on Hollywood Boulevard. And, so I was out there doing some work. He said, "Hey, do you know anybody, that could help out with the marketing aspect of things?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, actually, I have a friend of mine I just met like a few months ago that told me, you know, she's trying to stay in the country and get, you know, do the steps necessary for that. And one of them is getting a job here." She told me to let her know if I knew anything. And what do you know? There we go. She went to school for that. So he's like, "Oh, give her a call." So I called her and boom, she came, and we're both working there together with Grems. And we became good friends, you know. Uh, we became very good friends. And soon after that, because as I mentioned before, it's a small scene. We all know each other, all the women there. It was natural that around that time that we all ended up congregating together, and we congregated together, and we wanted to do something together. So it was me, her, Jackie, Miss Funk. Um, who else? Miss Funk, my friend Praying Mantis that I mentioned, Kunse, Joe Dance from Germany. Uh, who else? Um, there's a lot of us. Hero from We Are Heroes. All these women were all in town at the same time. Jo Dance didn't live in LA. She was. I'll tell you how that came about. But all of us together, we decided, oh, we want to enter freestyle session. Let's make a female popping group. So we made one, and we're throwing out names. And I threw out, I threw out foreign exchange, the name foreign exchange, because I was like, oh yeah, it's cool, because I feel like we're all from different cultures, and we rep from we rep differently from these different areas. So it's like it's a cultural exchange of sorts. So how about we call it foreign exchange? So we went with that. Oh, Andrea, I'm sorry, Andrea, she's amazing director and does films and commercials now. So yeah, she's in there. I'm sorry if I forget anybody. This was so long ago. So we enter freestyle session and we win. All of us, we win. We go on to do some performances on after that. And it was a group of us. I want to say it's a huge group of us. We performed at World of Dance, at Carnival. But just there's so many of us, it's hard to keep that big of a group together. And at that time, we're, as if Miss Funk, she's got her own versus style, and they're like, we've all got our own thing. So eventually everyone kind of went their separate ways, but we're all friends still. And that was a special time for us, because is in that generation, it was a first, I think, locally for all these females to come together that pop to rep on a level like that, and everyone was super dope. So
Right.
it made a big impact, I feel. So I want to shout that out real quick, because that was a special time in my life to be around all these amazing women, with different backgrounds, and to have that also be a part of my history. So never forget you for an exchange.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So, as a female, did you find any challenges through the popping scene? Like, did you ever feel like things were harder because you're in a minority of other people that are popping?
Like challenges. So only as a female, or as a minority, or both, or you mean just as a
Like,
female? Uh,
yeah, as both. Did you ever find any hardships being a female in the popping scene? Since
You
there,
know, no. I want to say, and this is going to sound really, and it was unfair, because, okay, it's really, I got to start in the most simple way possible to explain it. When I first got into the scene, I didn't even know it was a scene, like when I got into dance, was at parties and things. It was fun. I was doing it because it was fun, and I thought it was dope, and people were teaching me, and I was learning, and I didn't even know there were battles, or people were making money off this kind of thing, or traveling for it. I didn't know any of that. I
right.
just loved it. And I love music, and I love to move. And those things all happened. And I had good friends. I mean, I made good friends that were dope dancers, and that's just what we did. And I don't know, maybe a part of me liked it because I felt it was different, that I felt like I was doing something that not everyone was into, something about it. I don't know. And I don't know. I guess I really never noticed if there were females or not, because when I got into it, it was at parties and things. So there's a lot of other people there just hanging out, So there are females around. It's just they're not dancing. And if they were, they're, house dancing or doing other things. And
Right.
um, so I guess I didn't really notice until I started going to events. And when I started learning about competitions and battles. And then, I was like, oh man, like that's when I noticed, I
Mm,
think, that there just weren't a lot of females around. And as I started to learn more about the dance and bring who I am out in it, um, then you start looking for more inspiration. And I guess that's when I also started to notice, because I'm looking at all these people, and I'm just like, man, like I'm looking. I felt like I was looking for something, and uh, and then when I seen Pringles, I was like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. and 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 then I just started to notice even more. Oh man, there's just really not a lot of us, are there? And then the ones that are, we all know each other. Um, and at the time, I felt like, this is going to sound really unfair, but I felt because I was a female, I felt people were like, oh, I want to teach you, I want to show you, there's not a lot of you around. So I actually felt like a lot of support, probably because I was female, which at times would be a little frustrating because I also wanted to be treated equally, which means like I didn't want people to give me like easy props, or like, oh, yay, like clap anymore just because I did good in a circle, but I know it wasn't that good, or like to be honest with me, or not just, I didn't want to hear comments like, oh, yeah, that's, good for a girl or things like that. So, little phrases and things like that would bother me. If somebody mentioned something about what I was wearing, I remember one time, I remember a couple times, like I got a comment one time and they're just like, oh, yeah, aren't you? Because I used to love wearing, well, I still do. I love all kinds of clothing, different types. Sometimes I wear bagging clothing, sometimes I wear dresses, sometimes I wear tight jeans, whatever I'm feeling, right? But when I first began dancing or getting into popping, I used to like wearing like tighter shirts, like shorter shirts and tighter pants and things like that. And I was at B-Boy Summit actually, and I was in a circle, and some guy was like, "Oh, aren't you like uncomfortable wearing that?" And he's like, "Don't you feel like it's uncomfortable?" Like, and I forget exactly what he said, but and it was probably my own insecurities too, and being really young, because at this time I'm building my confidence, my self confidence. So I'm like, oh, I started to pay attention to what I was wearing. And I'm like, oh man, maybe I should. I started looking around at people and I'm like, oh, people are wearing like baggier clothes and the bigger t-shirts, and maybe I'm not dressed right. so so I started wearing more things like that. And like then like I got out of it because then I was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna do what's right for me. So I just from out of that, I kept what I liked from that, and I love hip hop, I actually love like Aaliyah, and I love like the little short shirt and the baggy pants look, I don't think of it as female or masculine. I think it's just dope, so I was like, man, like I really love that. I'm gonna do that, so I started to go a little bit more that route. And then with the clothing and keep longer shirts, because at the time, like I said, I was younger, I had more insecurities with my body. I'm a thin girl, so when I was that young, I was a little bit ashamed of my arms, so I would never want to pop without a jacket. I had to have a jacket or a long sleeve flannel, because I also felt I thought it made the dance look better. And so then that happened, and then through that I just grew out of it. And then I just the more I learned from people, and just ways of thinking and thought, and just even going through life and growth as a human, I just started to get more confident in myself. And just at some point I was just like, F it, I'm going to wear what I want and it's going to look good no matter what.
Yeah, sure. Right.
All that went out the window as far as like how I look and what I'm wearing and how my hair is, like how tight my pants are, how not tight they are. Just as a woman, I felt like these things just were even more magnified, especially when I got more into the industry side of things and going into because as a popper, then I'm wearing like a mixture of baggy clothing, and I had this confusion of like, I don't know, I'm going for this audition, what do I wear? Do they want me to show more of my body? Am I not sexy enough? I mean, I started to go through that. And then, I grew through that as well, to just say, you know what, like that's a whole nother world in itself. Like anybody out there who, if you don't know anything about that world, that's the kind of world where you definitely got to have thick skin, because it's not really so much. People get upset because they're like, oh man, maybe I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not this enough, and I'm not this enough. It's not really about that. They just have what they're looking for. And if you're not what fits what they're looking for, then you're just not going to get the audition. But it has never take any of that personally. So I feel like going through the industry part of things really built a thicker skin for myself. And I started to take a lot less personally, and also allow things to enter my world and make me question who I am, you know? But at the same time, remain open to be like, oh, to change, or things I might like. So there's a dance with that. Challenges with also, I want to say also with just, because I feel like I came from a street environment, but my grandparents raised me in a really safe and very positive environment. So there's a lot of things that I was around when I was a child that and saw, but not because I was in it or in that situation. And my grandparents allowed me to see those things or be around those things as I got older in small increments, so that I wouldn't be so naive with the world. And I felt like once I got older, the more I started to immerse myself, because it's a street dance. We're in street culture. You're going to be out there, and this is life, part of life, and especially in LA and certain areas. And it's it's there's a lot of things that I was like, oh wow, like they weren't new to me, but they were definitely some things where I started to be around more of that I wasn't around so much maybe when I was younger. Like maybe you're around that person who's going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, or like say this or that. And for me, like, because I grew up, my grandparents tried, my grandma specifically, my nana, did her best to raise me with street smarts. So I have my way of combating these things. So for me, I don't want to say that these were struggles I had growing up in the scene. These were things that I was prepared for since I was younger to deal with. And it's just, I felt like no one likes to go through these things. I don't condone men making comments about how you look, or making advances towards you or anything like that that are unwanted or anything like that. There's a lot of stories I have heard my friends go through that I won't speak on because they're not my stories. But like I said, I was very lucky to be around people who were supportive of me. And whenever I went to houses and things like that with these older gentlemen at the time, because they're OGs and I'm super young in my early 20s, I was with my friends. So and the few times that I did go out, they were with people I trusted, and I probably should have had another friend there, but I got lucky and that they were always took care of me. But definitely some instances where I look back and I'm like, man, I really did that. Because we're hanging out in parking lots, we're going to areas we probably shouldn't be, especially with raids and things like that. But even outside of that, like just going to go learn from people and going to areas you're not from, and
Right.
things like that, different times of the week and night. I was always with friends. So I was protected. But hey, it's not so much the case with a lot of people. Um, so yeah, I want to say there are some struggles out there, but I was very fortunate not to really go through any that were traumatizing.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like you had a good experience and you're safe and it sounds fun. As a
Oh, but I'm definitely not trying to definitely sugarcoat things, saying, yeah, like nothing bad happened to me. Like, no, definitely, like, I've, even going through raids, like, how you go through a crowd, someone, touches you without you being invited, or me going out to going out to an event or something, getting hit on, like, definitely these things happened. Definitely people, comments about, like I said, what I was wearing, unexpected comments out of nowhere. These definitely that's the level of things that I experienced, which I'm grateful it wasn't any worse than that. But definitely uh, there is, if anything, of a struggle. I would say maybe there were times where I felt, and this is something that me and my friend Pringles had talked about when I first met her, where we felt like sometimes at that time, because there wasn't a whole lot of us in the public eye like that in battles and things, um, the ones that were, a lot of people would unknowingly, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe they did know, but a lot of times we would be kind of like, oh, what would happen if this girl battled that girl? Or what would happen if Pandora battled Pringles? Or, oh, and that's cool, but like, I also wanted the what ifs about what happened if like Pringles battled, I don't know, Swa, or like what happened if like what would happen, I mean, what about comparisons to all these other people? So when I was younger, that was something that I was like, I would struggle with personally. I don't anymore, as I get older, a lot of things don't bother me at all. But when I was younger, I definitely was like, man, like, what if we just like, because sometimes it wouldn't just be about dance. Sometimes it would be like, oh, like, jealousy or something. And it's like, man, like, so when I first met Pringles, we both had this conversation. We thought we would laughed about it, and we thought how that was really funny, actually. that people would do that. And we're like, yeah, and we laughed at each other, and told each other stories. And I was telling her how for the longest time I was practicing because I knew like at some point someone, might put me up to battle or something. And so I was practicing my strobing. I admired her. I looked up to her, so we'd laugh about these things and we became good friends. And since then, I've always made it a point to, it's not that you got to be friends with everybody, but just be in good support, other women out there,
Yeah.
and you can still be in competition with people from a event point of view. You can still compete against someone and you don't have to dislike them
Mhm.
to compete. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be, if you're get first place, you don't have to be jealous or dislike or feel like, or if you don't get first place, it doesn't mean like the person, if she happens to be female that did get first place, doesn't mean that they're better than you or that you're not good enough, or there's all these things that get, we feed into our minds. Someone else might feed into our mind, or maybe they don't mean to, and then we turn it into that. I mean, there's so many ways that these things can happen, and it's unfortunate because, as we just spoke of, there weren't at this time in my life a lot of us. So I was uh, also very fortunate enough to run into very progressive minded people that were all about that too. And like Kringle meeting her, and then us starting Venus Fly, and then foreign exchange, all us women getting together to do that. I was very fortunate to be around people who thought the same, and I try to keep that with me to this day, that it's important to uplift each other, not be in competition with each other like that, because it's unnecessary. There's enough for everyone in this world, and we're all different. We all shine in our own way.
Right. Beautiful. How did you cope with like when people would hit on you and you didn't want it, or if people like, the minor things, struggles that you had as a female, like in the popping scene, or if people would talk about your outfit rather than your dancing, like how did you deal with that and stuff?
Well, let's see. This is a long time ago. When I was younger, that's an interesting time, because when I got into the scene, I wasn't in my young teens. I wasn't like a teenager. I mean, I started going out to parties and things and having a lot of adult nightlife, fun party experiences when I was very young. But being around the scene, whenever that would happen, because I just experienced so much of like, a lot of life in general before that, it was just like, oh man, like this is happening. And then I just dealt with it. I mean, there's a couple times that, would piss me off, sorry, I didn't mean to curse. There are a couple times that, that I would feel a little weird, or get upset. But, at that time, the way I was brought up in the dance, I was brought up with people that had very thick skin, and I was just like, man, like for me, as it was something that was, if I didn't like that, I'm going to leave, or I'm going to tell that person to leave.
Mm.
And that's basically how I handled it. And then the people that were around me, uh, either like offered to get involved, or like on their own did or didn't, so I had a good support system. And then also for me, like I said, I had a upbringing that prepared me to, either something makes you feel uncomfortable, uh, you deal with it, right then and there. But you feel how you're going to feel. I definitely felt how I felt being younger, and sometimes I didn't know how to feel. Some things confused me for sure, because I'm young and growing. I was in my early 20s, not that young, not a teenager, but definitely like, I want to say around 19, 20, 21, being around all this. I also looked a lot younger than my age too, at that time. I want to say I looked like I was like 15 when I was 20, and so a lot of times when I would meet these older men and older people in the scene, then basically the way they would talk to me was like I was like a 13-year-old, like a kid, basically. So I guess I kind of and I used to wear my hair too in braids, when I was younger. I had braces, so there's things about me that, like, I'm thin as a toothpick. I mean, there's like I I got the like kind of the kid treatment, I guess, also besides the female, like, oh, she's a female, but like a kid treatment. So I didn't run into anybody that like was trying to hit on me so much when I was around that age. It really didn't happen until like I started getting more around this into the scene and getting more popular, and more from people around my age. Um, so, and then for when that happened, that didn't creep me out so much because they're around people my age, it's just if I'm interested or not, that's another thing. But most of the time I'm not, but that's the only that just became annoying because it was like, sometimes like, I didn't want it, the conversation to go to my looks, or be about that, and then, or like, a conversation that would seem like, regular conversation to turn into, oh, this person's just trying to hit on me, like, so sometimes that would happen a lot, but I had been warned, that from people who are older than me, that things like that would happen in the scene, especially the more you get out there and the more popular you get, people become fans, they like you, and kind of like a singer, or like a celebrity, people look up, and it can get dangerous, you can get stalkers, I had some weird stalker emailing me one time.
Oh,
Yeah. So I mean, these things, I'm sorry to say, but that should be known that the more you put yourself out there, the more you put yourself out there. And that doesn't make anything right. Let me just say that also, but definitely the right questions to ask and to answer for yourself is, how do I handle this? And to know how to handle these things, both personally and legally, and as soon as possible, like, and have a good support system and things like that. I was younger. So there are a lot of these things I didn't know at the time, but there also wasn't things like the internet, like how it is today, so a lot of the interaction or like weirdness, I would only really experience a lot of that in person, which it's, things like that only happened when they were physically happening when I was there, most of these times there's thousands or hundreds of people there, so it wasn't as scary or anything like that. It's just like, oh man, let's stay away from this person. Or, oh, I don't respect that person anymore.
yeah.
Or, oh, I'm not going to talk. Well, I guess that one's not going to be my teacher. So I laugh about it now. When I was younger, that would, kind of disappoint me, I should say. But yeah, if so a lot what these other people are experiencing today, I cannot, I can only imagine how what people must go through now. But during that time, I've definitely had my run-ins, but definitely am lucky to have not experienced the worst of things.
Good. I'm happy to hear that too. As a very influential woman in the scene, what do you want to see other females artists pushing on? What do you want to see the next generation do? How do you want to see them grow?
Can you say that one more time?
Sure. I have it written down actually because I was very curious about this. You have a huge influence in popping, and what do you want to see other female artists pushing on?
What I want to see other female artists, female is an interesting word. I feel like when it comes to gender, one of the main things we always struggled, and when I say we, I feel like what I identify as, so I was a woman. I feel like when I first began, I think what I loved when I entered the scene was every woman that I did come in contact with, they pushed to me was they didn't really see gender as a factor in these competitions. And when it came to their own femininity, they felt, it's not that they felt it made them special or above anyone, but they embraced it. And they embraced it in their dance and in who they were as a person. And that inspired me a lot. It inspired me because I felt, wow, like it's important to say that everyone, we want equality. And that, for me, I'm a big believer in that. I think it's important. We should all be in the same competitions. We should all be respected the same. However, like there's a lot of different things just as a human that I feel that it's important to connect with. And something about connecting and seeing someone that connects with the same thing you do is empowering. And that goes for if if you're transgender, or if you don't identify with anything, or if you're a woman, or if you're a man, like whatever you identify as, to see another person that identifies with the same thing you do is empowering, because it touches a part of ourselves personally, and it helps us to connect with that in ourselves. And to see how someone else does inspires, it does. And for me, I feel I would like to see other females or women. Um, I don't want to say use the word push, but I want to say display. Share is a good word. I want to see more of them. I would like to let you know, anyone out there watching, to share that with the world and not to hide it away. Um, there's a lot of times in life as a human, we collect insecurities, or we've had them since a kid. Sometimes new ones form to replace old ones. But you know what? And then we feel insecure about that on top of the insecurities. Don't feel insecure. Embrace your growth. Share it with the world. Share what makes you you. If you embrace your sexuality and you feel like, yeah, I'm going to get out there in my short shorts and I'm going to do, you know what I mean? Like, let me use foreign exchange as an example. We're all so different, you know, Miss Funk, Hero, me, Marie, Poppins, Joe Dance. I mean, we all dressed differently. We all different personalities and our own ideas of like what we connect with, you know. And I feel like all of that is fine. All of it is woman. All of it is what makes you you. If you're a woman and it makes you feel good and that brings out a part of you that is feminine, then that is your femininity. Then that is you as a woman. And don't be afraid to share that. Don't feel like, oh man, I'm not sexy enough, or oh man, I'm too sexy. Or oh, like, you know, I mean, granted, like, hey, you know, maybe there's a time and place for things, you know, but I'm talking more of like from an artist point of view, you know, like to inspire the world as an artist, as a dancer, as a person out there, as a point of light. I feel like we don't take that, we take it for granted. And as I got older, I feel like as when I was younger, I wish I had, if I had any type of wishes, I wish I had known that a lot sooner when I was younger. But at the same time, maybe that doesn't make any sense, because how could I have known a lot of the things that I ended up knowing through human growth? I just didn't know a lot of things when I was younger. So I feel like women, if you're young, just embrace what you have. Don't be insecure. Don't feel it's not good enough. It is what it is. Be appreciative to where you're at on your path. You continue on, you will continue to grow. If you continue to ask questions, you will continue to find the people that will inspire you in the right direction. And for the women like me who have been in the game for a long time, continue the same thing. Continue on your path. Continue to share what makes you wholesome as a woman. Share that, because there's going to be not just one, but a lot of people that will connect with that. And that will inspire them to maybe either share the same perspective or their own perspective, a twist on it or whatever. I think the most important thing is just to be you, um, and just realize that like you could get, like for instance, there's a lot of times we're searching for someone to help us with our femininity, or to show us what it means to be sexy or feminine. But these things are already in you, they're already in us. And it just takes the right uh, artistry or experience or even song or, you know, person to bring that out of us. So I would say just don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself down. Continue on, continue going, and push confidence. Self-confidence is the main thing. It will make everything come together. You could be the most best dancer in the world, but if you don't have self-confidence in yourself and just confidence in general, um, it just you could fall to pieces like so easily and allow other people to pick you apart. And for me, and that's a part of having thick skin, and it's just having the confidence and the grit and the endurance, um, just to stay yourself, to be comfortable with still learning, but at the same time, be able to step up and hold your chin up and be like, you know what, this is me no matter what. And this is where I'm at in this point in time. And what? That's what hip hop taught me too. You know, even my current crew, Style Elements, I mean, which Poppins ended up becoming a part of. She's my crewmate also in this crew. And uh, you know, I'm part of a crew that has a long legacy, and in that also confidence, embracing who you are. As my partner Quality says, you know, there's you put each one of us behind a curtain, and we danced. You know who we were, you know. So I feel like man, I've said so much already, but just to summarize it, be confident, love yourself at every step of the way, never stop, and love everyone else. And we're all here in this world together. We all have different struggles. Some worse than others, some a lot worse than others. Some we can relate to, and some we will never be able to relate to. However, you're not alone. We are not alone, and the world can continue to change. We can continue to change. Things can continue to get better. Just never ever stop.
Wow, thank you. For someone that has had such a long lasting artistic career, what do you feel it takes to have longevity in this?
Well, I feel having your mental health in a certain place, definitely as you get older, is important, because a lot of things we feel like when we get to be an adult, that means we've figured everything out. That's what I used to think when I was younger, but not so. There are some things that you figure out. Definitely, it does get better in a lot of different areas. However, life is life. You know, it can take all types of twists and turns, and it should, because it's like a river. You know, it's going to keep going everywhere, and we've got to be resilient. We've got to be flexible. I would say it's important to stay flexible. You know, you'd be able to bend, and when something does this to you, you're able to kind of form with it. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean lock away your emotion, but definitely feel what you feel, but definitely keep moving. You know, definitely make those decisions, keep making those decisions. Sometimes we don't know the answer until we take a step. We could sit there all day long and be like, what if I did this? What if I did that? And we could take a week to a year and then nothing happens. So definitely don't be afraid to make the decisions that you need to, and don't be afraid. Don't pigeonhole yourself like, oh, if I do this, I can't do anything else. Trust me, when you're young, you have the opportunity to make a mistake and start all over again. So don't be afraid to go for it. You know what I mean? Because time is of the essence. And as you get older, you have less time. So the younger you are, take advantage of your time. When you get older, take advantage of your time. You got to still take advantage of your time every minute, even, you know what I mean? And like for me, like I'm only busier the older I get, the more opportunities and more projects I take on, that, you know, for longevity in the dance, you know, to maintain my skills, you know, I got to fit in workout time. I got to fit in practice time. Like my teacher Tavo said, you know, one of my teachers, you've even if it's 5 minutes, you know, bust a little something, you know, I might do little tut in between. Hey, if there's no music, guess what? There's no music at that moment, you know, but maybe I'll film it real quick, you know, look at it later. I mean, everything counts, you know, you just got to sometimes calm yourself down so you can be able to handle it all happening at one time, because life has a lot of moving parts. Longevity, I want to say, also taking care of yourself, healthy, being physical. And I may not be the healthiest eater, I will admit it, but I work out. I definitely, I've experienced, from being a performer and using my arms a lot, a rotator cuff injury once. And ever since then, I've been even more hardcore with physical therapy and like doing small stretches and workouts that work out these parts of my body, so that I don't, the parts that I use most, so I can keep them maintained. So definitely work out, you know, try to eat healthy as you can. You may not have all the money or the resources or the time to get the things that you need, but don't let that hold you back. Do what you can. And later it will accumulate. You know, if you don't know how to, try one thing. Try one thing, you know, and then don't pressure yourself. Start learning slowly. Take baby steps. And then one day, it's like dance, you know, you start with one thing, you start with the foundational thing, and then the more you learn, all of a sudden one day, or how much work you put into it, you're amazing, you know. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. Nothing does. Everything good is going to come with some, not just, I don't want to say hard work, but continuous work, consistency. So definitely take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your time, your body. Be consistent, never stop, but know when to take breaks, know when to have some fun, you know, laugh a lot, get your memes on. What else? Art, never give up on looking at art. When you get older, sometimes we take life really seriously, but we get these, I guess, the writer's block for dancers and creatives. And hey, read a book, read fiction. You know, don't always look, you know, news is important, but also, you know, like if you like to read a science fiction book, I don't know, watch a Marvel movie, or go watch like a fantasy movie, go look at a painting, go to a gallery, you know, change circles, talk to some people that have nothing to do with what you do, get a new perspective, you know, write, keep a journal. I keep a journal, you know, that's where I write, you know, if I feel a certain time way. When I was in junior high, my teacher taught us freestyle writing, where you just open up a book and you don't think, you just write and you just let it all come out. And you don't worry if it even sounds grammatically correct. And for me, that was one of the coolest things that I learned, you know, because it's like freestyling. To be able to just be comfortable with just getting out there and being comfortable with what is, you have to just get out there with what you have. So I look at life a lot the same way, you know, and for me, backtrack your mind, your body, your soul, my spirituality, my culture, you know, my family, but also, hey, the hard realities of life as you get older. Work out, eat healthier, be happy, smile, but also take advantage of your time, choose wisely, and yeah, can't say it enough. Have a good support system. I have a wonderful fiance, and a wonderful crew and friends, you know, and family. So I'm very blessed and thankful for that.
That's awesome. What projects do you have coming up, or is there anything you're working on right now?
So I have a couple things that I'm the type of person where I try not to speak on some things if they are not at the point of being released. So there's definitely some things that I'm working on that are new. You know, at this point in my life, I'm 39. I'll be 40 in July. So I've done a lot at this point, traveled a lot, you know, done a lot of great performances, worked for a lot of great companies and people and celebrities and people, and, you know, won my fair share of competitions. I mean, I feel like I've done a lot and I'm not done yet. And there's a lot more that I want to expand upon. And in terms of more theatrical work, but more from my company point of view. Little Box of Hope is my company with my fiance. We're both co-owners of, and also I'm doing more work, more community leading and organization in terms of not just within the dance and my partner, but also with my family and also with my culture, my own culture, getting more involved with the Native community here, not just in Vegas, but also Oklahoma and just in general, you know, across America. So this is a newer thing for me because it's outside of the dance scene. So, however, there are dancers, you know, the Native powwow scene and things like that. So there are, but that's also something that you will see more of. So more theater, more community leading. Of course, I'm going to continue to teach workshops and things like that. However, yeah, like I said, there's a couple projects that I just not ready to speak on yet, but trust me, I'm wait till you see what I do the next half of my life, y'all. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Where could people reach you or
You
contact?
can reach me, follow any of my social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Pandora Marie, YouTube. I would say please follow me on YouTube, Pandora Marie, and also Instagram. I am Pandora Marie at I am Pandora Marie. I'm also on LinkedIn. Find me under the same. Twitter, Pandora Marie. Aside from all this, I'm also very involved with all my media presence. So you'll definitely connect with me there and follow me at those places. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you so much. This was a pleasure having you. I've looked up to you when I first got into popping so much. So this is a huge
Hmm,
and
I super appreciate that. Thank you.
so yeah, I really wanted to do this. So thank you so much. And
Aw.
mm,
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, thank you for having me. And I just want to also add, since this is a Funk and Focus thing, big shout out to Future. Also thank you for having me. His People may not know, but I've known Future for many years, and when I was a lot younger, when I first seen him coming around LA and stuff like that, I was like, man, who is this kid? Dope. And then we ended up battling together at I don't remember the name of the event. I'm sure he probably does. It was a 2-on-2. We made it to the finals and things like that. And um, yeah, so this is actually really cool for me too to be a part of this with you guys. And also thank you for all the love. I appreciate it. It's another reason why I do what I do, and that's why I tell everyone, you got to share we need to share with the world and pass on that inspo so that, you can go forward and pass that on to others. And, the whole thing can keep going, it's a legacy. You got to leave a legacy.